Welcome to With Love Men, where we dig deep into what it truly means to be a man today. I'm Jake Fishbein.
And I'm Nick Papadopoulos, affectionately known as Coach Nick. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. And together, Nick and I have led men's groups for a combined 25 years.
Yes, and combined, Jake and everyone, we've also written a novel about a fictional men's group and the impact of this work. In fact, today's episode, we're going to introduce one of those topics, one of those themes that our characters deal with, identify with, connect with. And speaking of our men's novel, it's coming out this June 9th, 2026. Yay! And you'll be able to find it at the mensgroupnovel.com or mensgroupnovel.com.
Yes, you can. And this podcast, in addition to our novel, The Men's Group, a novel of messy friendships, and the men's group we run, we're saying men's group a lot, but we do a lot of work with men's groups. We run a men's group called the Arena Men's Group. We have two men's groups in our community, talking about adding a third in the fall. So this
Yes,
podcast is a space, in addition to the book and our actual men's group, where we have real conversations about vulnerability, courage, and connection. No masks, no pretending, just honest talk about being men.
absolutely. Which is one of our pillars, actually, is exploring, defining what it means to be a man today in 2026 and beyond. So, with all that said, that was a lot. Take a deep breath in, Jake. Take it in, and let it out. And let's step into the arena together and let's get rocking and a rolling.
Let's do it.
Actually, I realized that, Jake, I mentioned that we have our men's fictional novel coming out June 9th. I didn't mention the actual darn name, which is The Men's Group, a novel of messy friendships. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, today we're going to talk about one of those topics from the book, one of the themes that our characters deal with and confront and identify and explore. And you'll have to read to find out if they actually have a breakthrough.
Yes, yes, you will. And as you read it, while our book is fiction, we hope that our readers go on the same journey that our
Yes,
characters go on too, and maybe ponder some of the same questions that are being asked
absolutely.
inside the story.
Absolutely. So what are we talking about now, Jake? What's the theme that we've been
What's the
teasing
theme?
here that our characters are dealing with in the book?
So the theme we're talking about is actually a theme that's really foundational to the work that we do in the Arena Men's Group,
Mhm.
that we do in one-on-one coaching with our clients. And it's a theme that we call myth. And for those of you listening, obviously we all kind of know what a myth is. I mean, I was a Greek myth nerd in elementary school, so
You still are. What do you mean
I
you were?
well, and then I transitioned to the history away from the
Okay,
mythology. So
okay.
I
Got
had a
it.
whole debate with someone
You
about
grew
that.
you grew up. You grew
I
up.
grew up. I grew up a little bit. Um, but we know what a myth is. It's these old stories about Zeus or Thor or
Right.
any of these gods or heroes from a past age. And myths hold something inherently human about them. And they're
Right.
also a way that we answer questions that don't have answers
Right.
for why the world is the way that it is. And
Right.
as we were writing our book, going back, we worked on this novel for 10 years, those of you who are listening. One of the themes we really wanted embedded in there was this idea that we all tell stories about who we
Yes.
are, just like
Yes.
all cultures tell myths and legends. And
Yes.
as individuals, we have myths as well.
Yeah. And they're significant, and or let me say differently, we attach significance to them, like a culture would around a myth.
Exactly. Just like the Greeks used to take the juiciest thigh bones and wrap them in meat and burn them for the gods.
Right.
We do our own versions of those
Yes.
sacrifices, except usually they're not as delicious smelling and they probably are a lot more disempowering. We're worshiping some pretty nasty gods in
Yes.
ourselves
Yep. Yep.
because you can't have a myth without a hero, but you
Yes.
also can't have a myth without a monster. That
Yes.
all of these myths have both of those.
Yes.
And within ourselves, just like the old image of the angel and the demon on our shoulders, we all
Hmm.
have a combination of these inspiring, heroic stories about who we are and what the world
Right.
is,
Right.
and these disempowering, kind of monstrous stories about who we are and how the world is. And in our book, we call those inspiring stories your higher purpose, and the disempowering shame stories, we call them your Minotaur, after
Right.
the half man, half bull child of King Minos of Crete, who is hidden away in a labyrinth until Theseus, the Athenian prince, came
Yep.
and killed the Minotaur. And just like the Minotaur was hidden in a labyrinth, oftentimes our shame stories are hidden somewhere deep within the labyrinths of our own souls and beings.
Yeah, and when unleashed, it can come out in a beast-like manner, right? In a dark manner, right? Because it's been hiding in the dark, right? Or it's, hidden away and it's, wants to unleash, especially when provoked, right?
Absolutely. So when you read the book, you'll see how this actually plays in to the story and what the characters are working on. And for our conversation, we thought we'd talk a little bit about higher purpose and Minotaur, which is
Right.
something all of us experience in one way or another.
Yep. Awesome. And I just want to add, just to ride your coattails around the myth, right? And the stories we make up. Years ago in a workshop, I love this framing that the then facilitator made, which is we are meaning making machines, and we make up meaning about everything. And that's really, really important to remember and consider, especially as we're having this conversation. Certainly when you read the book, and certainly when you're on your journey in life, that we make up meaning about everything. And you get to choose, or if you can elevate your awareness around what that story is, or what we're calling the myth, right? Um, what impact is it having? Right? What meaning are you making? And then as a result, what choices and behaviors are you taking? So wanted to add that piece as context as we jump into this conversation.
Yes, and as we do with all of our conversations for new listeners and listeners who've been with us on this journey, we each prepare a list of questions that the other doesn't see, as a way of mimicking what we call the hot seat in our men's group, and a way to have an organic, real conversation. We don't have scripts, we don't have
Right.
anything in our faces except our own lived experience and work with these concepts. So you kicked off the question asking me about this concept. So I have a question for you,
Okay.
which
So
is,
I'm on the hot seat
you're on
first.
the hot seat first.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Give it to me,
Um,
baby.
give it to you. So oftentimes when we teach around Minotaur and higher purpose, we start with the Minotaur
Right.
because we have to figure out where we are to really see where we're going. So
Right.
how does someone connect with the Minotaur in their own life? And how do you connect, or have you connected with your own Minotaur?
Yeah. I mean, the best place is to slow down, get grounded, and really pay attention, or as we like to say in group, notice. Notice uh, your or my reaction to a situation. Notice what words I use. What are my thoughts? What are the little voices in my head? Yes, I have little voices. Jake, I know you know that you've got little voices. We all have those little voices, right? And often when the Minotaur is unleashed, right, it comes out of hiding. Those little voices in your head, they're pumping up some really, really loud volume, right? Um, Usually the Minotaur is unleashed when you are triggered. I'll speak for myself. We always like to use I, right? So when I say I, it obviously applies to everyone listening as well, or can apply. So when I am triggered, or when I feel like my back is against the wall, or I feel pressure, or lots of things are coming at me, or I'm tired, right? Or I'm in that, sometimes it can also be when I'm in that scarcity mindset, right? And it could be because I have scarcity of time, scarcity of money, or scarcity of relationship or connection. It could be scarcity of rest, right? When I'm in any of those experiences, from again, trigger, back against the wall, exhausted, that's often when you want to pay attention to your reaction, right? And again, part of that reaction is, what are the thoughts? What are the little voices? What are the things that you say? Right? So when things don't go your way, right, you get rejected, or, all the lights are turning red and you're trying to get to that darn meeting, in time, or, or a few minutes early so you can get settled, right? And so for me, over the years, when I've really paid attention and taken inventory, what often comes out, and it's not pretty, right? I mean, it can come out with that angst, right? Sort of that beast-like reaction. For me, it's, I'm all alone in this fucking world and I can't get a fucking break, right? And it's sort of the combination, or some version of those two things. And it's interesting. My kids have noticed, especially the latter part,
Mm.
where I will say things like, I can't get a fucking break. Like, God damn it, right? And I get angry. What's also attached that's really, really important is the despair. Like as if I am I mean, I really take myself off the arena, right? I take myself off the court and I go into the stands like, man, I just can't get a fucking break. Like, here we go again. Like, the world is against me. My friends are against me. My partner is against me. My job is against me. Jake is against me, right? And and here's the thing about the Minotaur. We're gonna be right about it.
Oh,
Like, we're
yes.
gonna we're gonna double down. Like, yeah, I can't get a break, and yeah, I'm all alone, right? And I'm gonna look for that evidence. So it's really paying attention, again, just to summarize, it's paying attention to what you say in those moments that I described, your thoughts, the little voices. And again, in my case, I'm actually getting feedback from my family. Like, they call me, Baba for dad. They're like, Baba, there you go again. You're saying it again. And it's like, oh man. And it's really, and I actually appreciate that they're holding me accountable when I do that.
Mm. That is such a great example of how those thoughts in our minds are translated
Yeah.
into the words that we say without even realizing it.
Right.
And it reminds me of once I was at my first job out of college, which was a tough job. I was thrown into the deep end of a small PR firm,
Right.
like not knowing New York, not knowing anything. I once spent
That's when we first met, right? I
so
mean,
when we
on the
first
tail end
met,
of that,
on the
right?
tail end of that, exactly. The first week I was organizing an Excel spreadsheet and didn't realize there's an alphabetize, tool. Spent 3 hours moving cells around. It was ridiculous. But I remember I was sitting in my office and my boss sat like 2 feet away from me and I was doing something. I don't remember what. I just said, I'm so fucking stupid. And he looked at me and he was like,
Mm.
no, you're not. And always stood out because he was someone who gave very harsh feedback, who had
Yeah.
very high expectations. And there I was claiming, because I would say that to myself a lot, that's part of my Minotaur,
Right.
along with everybody is upset with me and I make
Right.
bad choices.
Right.
And those things, name any given week, and I'm dancing with all of that of I can't trust myself.
Right.
I this person's really upset with me because I don't know. I put a
Yeah.
period at the end of a text message. Like
Right.
the ridiculousness of these thoughts, and
Right.
yet they become all consuming and can come out in our actual words, which is great when people can call us
Yeah.
on that.
So let me ask you this question: where does the Minotaur come from?
Mm.
Right. I mean, obviously, in your case, and again, it would be in anyone's case, but it's for you. Like, where would you say it comes from? And there's a two-parter here, because you made me go first. See, you made me, because I can't get a break.
There you go. I'm triggering Nick on the
Right.
call. This is part of the coaching technique is
Exactly.
intentionally
Exactly.
triggering people.
Where does it come from? And is it bad? Literally, I'm using the word
Mm.
bad. Is it
Yes.
bad to have a Minotaur? Because, I mean, geez, I mean, think of the. I know your parents listen to this podcast. We're both swearing. I mean, I can't imagine they're going to approve of the swearing, right? I mean, but all kidding aside, is it bad to have a Minotaur?
So I'll answer them in reverse
Yeah.
because I think it's actually important that it's not bad to have a minotaur. It's normal. It's healthy. That oftentimes that little voice, which we call minotaur, you may have heard people call it resistance or your censor or your gremlin, or Brene Brown calls it your shame story, that it
Hmm.
has a purpose
Hmm.
because in our lives, and this is where it comes from, we all experience pain. We all
Hmm.
experience trauma, whether it's big T, acute trauma, or little t trauma, or developmental trauma. We
Right.
experience rejection. We experience all of these moments that we try to create meaning around.
Right.
And it's those moments that if I create meaning that I'm just really stupid, I don't know what
Right.
I'm doing, the next time it happens, I've already convinced myself I'm stupid.
Right.
So it hurts a little bit less. It also
Hmm.
protects me from making choices that might
Yes.
make me look that way. And
Yes.
so for myself, I mean, I think I'll speak for me. My Minotaur is like a really complex beast that
Yes.
it's got all sorts of different horns and veins and teeth, and each one is a little different.
Right.
And I can think back to, second grade. We used to do
Hmm.
it. I went to a Montessori school, and every year we did something called historical Halloween, where for Halloween you dress up as a historical character and stand in front of the room and do a speech, and people had to guess who you were. And
Okay.
I always like to choose the most obscure characters, but it happened after second grade. Um, because well, it was mixed between second and first grade. But I remember second grade really well. I remember sitting with my parents in this circle, this U shape, and someone said, "Well, when are you going to go?" I said, "Well, I don't like to go first. I like to go second or third." And I was one of the
Hmm.
Wright brothers for
Okay.
this historical
Okay.
Halloween. And of course, the two kids go first. And who are they?
They're the Wright
They're the
brothers?
Wright brothers.
Wow.
So I'm
Okay.
sitting there.
Let me guess, you felt a little pressure.
I felt pressure. I felt stupid. I felt
Hmm.
like I should have gone first. What was I doing? Pair this
Hmm.
with the year before we had Egyptian Day, a similar thing, and I'd gone as Ramses the second of Egypt, and some girl from an older class went up and she was Ramses the second of Egypt,
Oh
and
my
I'm sitting
gosh.
there in the
Wow.
audience and I'm thinking, can I become Ramses the first instead? Could I be? Because I was so embarrassed to have done the same thing as someone else,
Yeah.
which tells a lot about my character because I like to be unique.
Right.
For the rest of time, I chose very obscure characters that nobody was going to guess
Right.
to feel smart, to feel
Right.
different. And
Right.
like there was the inception of a large part of my Minotaur,
Yeah.
which is I'm not special, I'm not
Hmm.
smart, I can't
Hmm.
trust myself. And
Right.
for those of you listening, you're like, that was pretty lame. Like you were at a school and someone else went first and they were the same person you were. But at that time, that actually made a huge impact on
Absolutely.
my life. And there have been other moments that have been, I mean, truly heart wrenching and
Right.
heartbreaking that have had even larger impacts.
Yep.
But those were two of the first that I really remember that led me to create this story. And I'll just say this a little bit more
Right.
about this idea of is the Minotaur bad? I remember when I started working on this many years ago, and actually in the first draft of our book, it was all about killing your Minotaur. It was like you
Yes.
have to be like Theseus and behead the Minotaur. And the more that I've worked on it over the years, I've realized that it's actually a really unhealthy way to look at the stories that I have because it's denying a part of myself, and
Exactly.
it's saying like it's bad, it's evil, it's monstrous. And so much of how I like to approach it now is with this empathy and compassion and friendship, in
Yes.
that voice is trying to help me. It's
Yes.
trying to protect me from feeling the same pain I felt over the course of my life, and I
Yes.
get to be grateful for that and honor it. I don't have to call it bad or stupid or tell it to shut up. That just makes the
Yes.
voice louder, by the way. But
Yeah.
to really honor, it's as valuable as an inspirational voice. And like I said, you can't have a myth without it. You can't kill it because it
Yes.
needs to be there.
It's part of the story. It's part of our story. In this case, you're describing yourself. It's your story. And again, regardless of what the actual content or the circumstances, what you described is what I was defining around. When do you know the Minotaur is likely going to be unleashed? It's when you feel pressure, like you were feeling in second grade, or you were feeling shame, or you were feeling this fear, right? That's when that's when that's when you want to look at, okay, what's about to happen, right? Uh, and it is part of your story, and I do believe that as you accept that part of who you are, it's a way to be with it differently. It's a way to interact with it differently, right? What do you think about that, Jake? What would you say? Is that fair to say that as you embrace it, you use the word empathy, that you're able to actually tame the Minotaur to a degree?
Yes, and let me say this. Yes, I think as I interact with it differently, as I become friends with it or have an appreciation for it, the volume can go down, the
Hmm.
nastiness can go down, and it can lead to less choices from that place.
Yeah.
And I know in my life, it's like I've been working with the Minotaur for 10 years at least. I mean, 11 years if I go back to when I read The
Hmm.
Artist's Way, and Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, she calls it your censor.
Right.
I mean, I was on a call 28 minutes ago coaching somebody, and my Minotaur was like chattering away about something
Chirping.
completely unrelated
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
the call I was on.
Yeah.
And there it was. And am I going to do anything with what it's saying? No. I'm
Right.
not in reaction to the the that voice like I used to be.
Right.
And I mean, I could lead you down a litany of choices
Yeah.
that made a whole lot of sense at the time that I look back with and say, I was just led from this fear driven place
Yes.
to prove something true about myself. And yet I have a healthier relationship with my Minotaur now. It's not gone.
Right. Right. It's there. You can access it. It you can
Oh,
access it if
yes,
that's what you choose. And it is important to note that when the Minotaur is unleashed, we make choices from that place that are aligned with the Minotaur, which then produces a specific experience and a specific result.
exactly. What helps someone like tame that Minotaur, become friends with it? I know we've talked about like getting to that place, but how
Yeah.
does someone actually get there?
Obviously, what we've started to infer is awareness, emotional intelligence, right, around it. And I do believe, and Adam Grant just recently shared on one of his posts that, I like to follow around using humor as a way to um, loosen the grip that the Minotaur has on us, or the significance that we give it, right? Like you said, the story, right? My story is I'm all alone in the world. I can't get a fucking break. And then that can evolve into I'm stupid, and then as a result, I'll shrink, right? It's really about every time I go to that place now, and it happened recently, actually. And there was a group session that we were doing where you were away or traveling, or I think you were on a business trip, and then the other person that we coach with was also going to be out last minute. Actually, it was like a last minute thing, right? And he said, "Hey, I can't make it. I mean, for work. Not he wasn't being
Yeah,
irresponsible, but I've got this work in emergency. Can't make it." And so I'm going to lead the session. Now, I've been leading, facilitating men's groups on my own, whatever, for 20. I mean, it's not like I can't do it. And it is fascinating that for a moment, I went to this place of course, I'm going to be doing this all alone. We're going to be talking about this topic of myth, and then how that myth can be the Minotaur. In a moment, we'll talk about the higher purpose side. I know we've been focusing this first half about the Minotaur, so it was one of those like, oh, of course, here we are talking about the Minotaur, and I'm going to be doing it all alone. And it's like, like in the world of you can't make it up. It's like even though I coach on this and facilitate on this, and we're sitting here talking about it, in that moment, right? And in that moment, what I decided to do was poke fun at it, and just like I'm doing right now, which is like, there you go again, Nick. There you go again, right? And I text you, and I text our coach James, and said, hey, thanks for feeding my Minotaur today. And I really believe humor is a big part of it. Not humor from a disrespectful place, but rather from a place of, like, there you go again. Like, oh, silly me. Like, like like, of course I'm gonna go there, right? Or like I said, I appreciate my kids holding me accountable, and I do believe actually one of the value propositions of our men's groups is that we hold each other accountable and we pay attention to each other's language. That's something you can count on. And so I would say that you want to have people in your life, because not everyone's going to join a men's group or can or whatever. What we can find, hopefully, are people in our lives that can hold us accountable when we go to that place, right? When we go to the, I can't get a break, or I'm stupid, like
Mhm.
your boss saying to you, even though here's a guy like you described who had a reputation for giving harsh feedback, your words. He's like, you're not stupid, dude. Like, I mean, if you're stupid, then I must be stupid, right? Because I hired you to do this
Right.
job in this small PR firm, not a big PR firm, right? So I would say humor is probably the biggest one to loosen the grip of the significance. I also believe setting up an infrastructure of support where people can call it out for you. Again, in my case, it's my kids, it's our men's work, right? It's you and I partnering together. We will call that out all the time. Like last night, we had our men's group session, and we were talking earlier, and you told on yourself. You're like, hey, my Minotaur is like out front and center, baby, and like we started to kind of banter around it to loosen the grip. I would say, let me say one more. There's a third element to it, which is, and this is where it starts to kind of segue into higher purpose, is to start to activate your higher purpose, or to activate your North Star, or to activate your core values, or to activate um, the things that really, really fill you up as well. Where you feel like you're making a difference, or you're feeling really fulfilled. So those would be the three things: poking fun,
Mm.
having the infrastructure of support, and then number three, starting to connect to your higher purpose, to your core values, um, and dabbling in that space. Those would be the three. Would you add anything, or or double down on what I just said?
I would double down. I wouldn't necessarily add anything, but I would definitely double down on get it out of your head.
Mm,
And that's
yes.
something, it's why I said something last night. It's why I said something just now. Like my Minotaur was chirping earlier.
Yeah.
It's why when it's really loud, I will text a friend or tell a friend, because it's so useful to have someone say, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, or my favorite is I'll say something and they will just burst out laughing,
Hmm.
because it's this instant reset for me of, oh, right. Okay, because when
Right.
I'm really enrolled in my Minotaur, it's really hard to see beyond it. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm convinced that it's right. And I'm not
Yes.
trusting myself, because if
Yes.
I'm saying all of these things when I feel like crap, it must be
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
And when I vocalize that, that's for me, that's what helps me get access to then activating my higher purpose, or poking fun at it is involving another person. And my work continues to be, how do I not always have to involve somebody else? But
Yes.
but it's great. Even there was a moment I didn't realize my Minotaur was activated, but a friend of mine, he texted me, wanted to get us, my fiance and I, an engagement gift. And our registry isn't really up and running, and I'm
Right.
uncomfortable receiving engagement wedding gifts, which is a little bit of the Minotaur. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I texted him. I said, I'll think about it. Like, I'll send you the registry link, but you really, like, you don't have to get us
Sure.
anything. Like,
Sure.
you and your fiance being at our party is more than enough. And he texted back. He said, "Don't you fucking dare."
That's an example of what I'm just having people in your life to do that.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that.
It was so perfect because of course I felt terrible afterwards because I was like, oh, I did the thing. I'm always coaching people that allow people to
So
give you
you still
gifts.
found a way to have your Minotaur come out. Right.
I still found a way to, like, it got activated even more because it was like, you stupid fuck. Like, what were you thinking? You should have just said yes. But I so
And
appreciated.
round we go.
Oh, yes, round and round, round and round. So it didn't really, it got me out of one part of my Minotaur and activated a whole nother part. But I woke up the next morning and it was fine. But it
Yeah.
was one of those things where I was so appreciative of what he said because I didn't even realize that I was coming from this scarce place.
Yep.
And his text just reminded me,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, like, let him buy me a gift. Like,
Yeah.
why am I getting in the way of that? Do I not feel like I deserve it? Um,
Right. Right.
so I would just double down on, find
Yeah.
the people you trust enough to say these things where they're not going to reinforce it. They're going to tell you what a silly person you're being by thinking it.
Or what did he say to you?
Don't you fucking dare.
Right. Exactly. The other thing that to go back to this question about how do you sort of interact with your Minotaur differently is, a saying that I've had for a long time, which is when in doubt, focus out. So when you're in that, let's call it that space, look for an opportunity to make a difference. And what I mean by that, I don't mean it doesn't have to be heroic. It can be um, sending a text message to somebody, sending an email to somebody, calling somebody, responding to somebody, whatever it may be, where you're it's not about you. Because the Minotaur wants to have it be all about you, and the world is against me, and the world is fearful and scary, and so for me, what's also worked is to focus out, and it can be as simple yet as profound as, "Hey, Jake, great session last night."
Hmm.
Like we had a great, which we did, right? So I also want to encourage our listeners to consider that as well. So I know we've spent a lot of time on the Minotaur. So let me put you on the hot seat around higher purpose. What do we mean? And it comes up in the book. The book again is The Men's Group, a novel of messy friendships, which is coming out on June 9th, 2026. And it's you can find it, or we'll be able to find it on mensgroupnovel.com or themensgroupnovel.com. So two part again, because I'm just going to give you two parters here. So part one is, what do we mean by higher purpose? And how did you find your higher
Mm.
purpose? You specifically,
Such
right?
great. Yeah, I love those. I love those questions. And for us, when we talk about higher purpose in the book, in our men's group, in coaching, just like Minotaur, this is not a term we invented. It's not a concept
Right,
that we invented. Other people call it your why. I know Simon Sinek has the golden circle. It's
right,
all about your why. Some people call it the North Star. Some people call it, I think in Greek, there's actually this thing called telos, which is like a noble purpose.
mm,
And it's all the same thing about, like, your impact on the world and the
right,
people around you. And that's how we think about it. It's an outwardly focused impact that you have. It's the difference you make, the legacy you leave when you're being your best. It's what
Right.
someone would put on your tombstone. Or if you
Yep.
have a business or a website, if someone's going to have one sentence, this is the
Right.
impact that this person has.
Yeah.
They fill in the blank. This is what they do. And for us, it is a reorientation towards focusing outward, focusing on making a difference, focusing on your unique impact in the world, because everybody's higher purpose is different.
Yep.
And we always like to say, and this links into that second part of your question, that you don't have to create your purpose.
Mm.
Your purpose is already there. And
Just
I
like
was
just like your Minotaur. It's
just
there
like
already.
the Minotaur, it's there already. And I always think about something a friend of my dad said. He said, "Don't worry about going to find your path. Your path will find you."
Hmm.
And I think very similarly, your higher purpose, my higher purpose, it's been with me since I was a kid. And you
Hmm.
can see the thread in different ways. And I started figuring it out by looking back at 10 of the moments that I was most proud of in
Mm.
my life and journaling about them and looking at what about that moment? Like, why did it send shivers up my spine? Why did I feel
Right.
absolutely self expressed and on fire when I was having that experience? And then I looked back at the commonalities between
Hmm.
those. And this was in the days before AI, so I couldn't put it into Claude or ChatGPT and have it tell me. I had to look at what was the common theme, the common thread between those experiences. And what I came up with 10 years ago, which was to ignite a passion for discovery and deeper understanding, has
Hmm.
evolved over a decade as I became clear on what it was actually about. And
Right.
where I landed and have refined it, I mean, since 2018 has been pretty consistent, which is my purpose is to guide people home.
Mm. Mm. I love that. I always love when you share that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I feel really connected to it in this moment.
It's clear you
That,
do.
yeah, because when I look at the things that matter to me over my lifetime, I mean, you begin with, I mean, the Odyssey's been my book since I was
I was gonna say, yeah.
eight
And
years
what and
old.
and what is he doing in that book?
He's trying to get home.
Yeah.
And so and that's been the theme. And I think about my ancestors who were Jews from Eastern Europe, the people of
Mm.
exile, our people
Mm.
have always been trying to get home. But
Mm.
Jews, I mean, I don't know the details of this about, what Jewish life was in the early 1900s and 1800s in Europe, but there was this whole thing about a lot of Jews were anti-Zionist because in Eastern European Jews, because for them, it wasn't actually about returning.
Got it.
It was about
Oh,
the
I see.
journey or the hope of
Right.
returning.
Got it.
And I'm not an expert at that by any means, but I think about that because that's part of my DNA too. And then I think about all of these other moments and the work that I've chosen to do, which is about guiding people home
Mm.
to the place where, I mean, we always use Ithaca as the stand-in for your goals. And
Right. The
if
Ithaca poem is what you're referencing.
yeah, this poem by C.P. Cavavy called Ithaca, which is, when you set out for Ithaca, hope your journey is a long one.
Right.
And home is Ithaca. Ithaca was Odysseus's home.
Right.
And metaphorically, the work that I do in the men's group, in coaching, in my personal relationships, is all about creating that experience and guiding people, including myself, to home,
Yeah.
to Ithaca.
Yeah. I love it. It does sound similar when you asked me earlier in the conversation about how do where do you find your Minotaur, or how do you identify it? It seems this similar, right? Where you said it's in your being already, and you can, like your Minotaur, pay attention to your words, your thoughts, your actions, um, in the same way, right? When you're in that experience, right, about guiding people home, if you pay attention to, again, your words, your thoughts, your actions, they're very much aligned with guiding people home, guiding yourself home for that matter, guiding anybody home, right? Is that
Yes.
fair to say?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's one of those things where the higher purpose has lots of threads too. And you could build out, I mean, a whole novel around your higher purpose, which I think we kind of did in
Right.
writing our book, is it is
Yeah.
an expression of both of our higher purposes. And that there are an infinite number of ways to fulfill one's purpose. And I think
Right.
that's really important for all of you who are listening, because when I teach this working with clients from the group, oftentimes people are saying, well, I guide people home by coaching people. And
Mm,
anytime you get a by or how in the purpose, it's no longer the
hmm.
purpose.
Yep. Yep.
That's might be your mission statement, it might be your
Yes.
process, but I can guide people home through cooking a meal, through having a
Yes.
conversation, through going to a
Yes.
movie together, through just sitting
Yes.
in silence, that all of those can create the experience of being home or learning along the journey. And it's not
Um,
relegated to coaching. If I decided tomorrow I want to hang up my coaching hat, I'm going to
yes.
stop coaching. My higher purpose would still be to guide people home. I just would
Absolutely.
find another way of doing it.
Yeah, we bring ourselves everywhere. That's the good news, right? I mean, you're guiding people home. My purpose is inspiring people, inspiring teams to live with purpose, ignite transformation, and leave their communities or organizations, if we're talking from a business context better than they found it, right? I mean, for me, it's getting in the arena, no pun intended, right? Getting on the court, because that's very true for me. About it is so important for me to have people, to have hope, much like Viktor Frankl, right? Like in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, hope is what got him through the concentration camp, right? And I just, for me, it's just so core to give people the space to and the opportunity and the tools to get back on the court. You know,
Mm,
it it breaks my heart when the opposite is happening, and it lights me up when people are on on that path, or I'm on that path. So yeah, it's really really important. This conversation is really really important. It's important to our characters, obviously, in the book, but it's really really important as part of our whole journey, which again we've been talking about higher purpose and Minotaur as well.
yeah. When you're really connected to your higher purpose, to inspiring people, teams to live purposefully, to ignite transformation, to leave where they are better than they found it, how does that feel in your body? Like, what is it? How does it translate into like what you actually feel like in the moment?
I literally could go on for days without, needing to rest or to eat. And I don't mean that from an unhealthy perspective. I'm just so I can feel it in my body. My voice is elevated. My voice is different. My energy is different. Um, my level of creativity, my level of awareness is different. It's like, actually my brain is like it becomes like a pinball machine. And it's it's bouncing all over the place, yet in a very in an organized way, not in a chaotic way. um I just it just all feels right. It all
Mm,
feels super easy. Everything just sort of it's green lights all the way. That's sort of the experience that I have when I'm locked in. Um, I would say the experience I have is it's fun. It honestly, it's fun and it's easy. That's when I know that I'm locked in to my purpose. Um, and when I'm immersed in that experience.
mm. What would you say if we have a listener who's sitting there and they're saying, man, I don't know where to start. I
Yeah.
can't really hear those little voices in my head. I'm not really aware of them. I don't know what it feels like to be able to go without eating or without sleeping. Like Jake asked to name 10 experiences that I'm proud of, and like I don't even know where to start there. What would you say to someone in those shoes for how they can enter this conversation that we really do believe is so foundational to living purposefully?
I would say to pay attention to what's important to you, and what turns you on, what fills you up, right? I really, really started to pay attention to um, what for example, making a difference or giving back or contributing, right? And sort of being outwardly focused, like what that did for me, for my body, right? Like how it felt, um, and what I was able to create. I started to pay attention to like, hey, I like to read, I like to explore, I'm a seeker. Um, I would start with, you might want to, you could call it your core values, right? What, like starting to identify what your core values are. But even if that is too, like, what's core values? Just paying attention to what matters and who matters to you. What are the
Mm,
things that really, we both have worked with a similar therapist, and she prescribes really a similar approach, which is, hey, what are the things that fill you up, right? And it can be some of the basics like exercising or reading or looking at movies or playing fantasy sports or spending time with your pet or spending time with a loved one or traveling. It's all of the above, but there are certain things that inspire us more than others. There are certain things and certain people that fill us up more than others. So I would say it's about paying attention,
mm,
becoming aware of those things. Look, I love to watch movies. I love to watch dramas. Um, Even that, and why? Well, you know, if I start to think about some of the movies that I was turned on to, early on, The Graduate, Good Will Hunting, To Sir with Love, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. These are movies about people um, being inspired to get on the court. I mean, these are all about igniting transformation, right? I would start there. I hope that I'm being clear. I mean, I would just start with what are the things, who are the people
mm.
that really matter to you and really, really, really have you like, okay, I want more of this.
Yes. You just reminded me, not that I haven't thought about this, but when I was a senior in college at Kenyon College, which is a small
Mhm.
liberal arts school in the middle of Ohio, a couple friends and I can't remember where we had this idea. I think we baked cookies or made peppermint patties in my apartment. And the three of us talked and we were like, you know what we should each do? We should each make a list of the things that make us happy.
Hmm.
And we came up with a whole prompt like, this is a list of things that send shivers up my spine or make me feel inspired. And I remember doing that list, and it was a long list. And there was everything from scenes from movies to certain people to the
Right,
feeling of drinking cold water on a hot
right.
day.
Hmm.
And I think now that my higher purpose was in there, as
Yes.
well as just to your point, the things that mattered to me
Yeah.
and how valuable like that list is still a touchstone. I mean, it's changed because I'm no longer a senior in college, but it's still a touchstone today because so many of those things. I know when I'm feeling down, I will put on the music from Zorba the Greek, or now there's this song by this artist Thomas Bergerson, who I listened to all through writing the men's group novel. That I will listen to that song because I know it will change the way that I'm feeling.
We know who our people are. We know what we want to be around or what we want to do more of. We can feel it when we're misaligned, right? That's what I mean about paying attention. The more that you pay attention to the experience you're having, I shared with you last night. I started reading, and it's been a while since I really read, and I feel so good reading.
Mm,
And it's not the actual reading. What it is for me is, at my core, I'm a seeker. That line, paraphrase from Dead Poet Society, about sucking. Well, it's not from the movie, but sucking the marrow out of life, right? Like that's who I am in my core. And so reading is one way. Like you said, you can guide people home in so many different ways. I can be a seeker in so many ways. Right now, reading is that, right? When we do our men's work, like I love our men's work. It's for me, it's healing for me. I mean, I'm hoping it is for everybody else too, right? That we work with. But that's what I mean. Like I want to do more men's work
mm.
because I know that it fills me up. I know that it's my vitamins. It's getting sun. It's my version of getting vitamin D, right? And we all have that. We all have that when we pay attention. And when we
Uh,
also ask others. You can also ask others as well around you.
yeah, other people, I mean, I'll say this and then we do our parting shots
Right.
that oftentimes if you're struggling to figure out what lights you up, go ask the people around you.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
when am I unleashed? When am I passionate? What am I doing when I'm at my best? Because it is there, which is what we've said so many times in this conversation. Your passion, your energy, your purpose, whatever you want to call it. And by the way, you don't have to use these names at
Exactly.
all. They're just names that we chose because they're aligned with how we like to talk about
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
However you relate to it, that's how you relate to it, that the people around you can see it.
Exactly.
So, Nick, what would be your parting shot from our
Yeah.
conversation today?
My parting shot would be we all have myths or a myth because we're meaning making machines, right? And as we've described, hopefully, and in the book as well, um, that myth can either come in the form of a minotaur or it can come in the form of what we're coining as higher purpose, right? Um, Neither is good or bad. What I would offer is to relate to both as an opportunity to look at what's the experience that's being created for yourself and for others. And so if you're operating from the Minotaur or you're operating from higher purpose, because you're going to operate from one or the other, right? Higher purpose, the world occurs as an opportunity, as abundance, trust. Minotaur, uh, it could be scary, more scarcity, right? In either case, you're creating an experience and you're creating results. Which is the experience and result that you desire for yourself and for others? And the second thing I would say as my parting shot is that we often, when we're looking to create transformation, especially in Western culture, we often immediately go to our behaviors, our actions, and our choices. Hey, I want to be healthier, go to the gym 3 times, or make more salads, or meditate more. And by the way, all wonderful things. And what you want to really work on first is is getting a hold of what your myth is and the impact of the Minotaur and the impact of your higher purpose, because that's what's really driving the bus.
Mhm.
Because your choices, behaviors, and actions are completely aligned with which side of the story, which myth is coming out, the Minotaur or the higher purpose. So you can go to the gym 3 times a week, but if you have a conversation in your head and your minotaur's out saying you're stupid, you'll never do this, you're irresponsible, well, you're going to stop going to the gym after a couple of weeks, right? So it's really, really important to get connected to your myth and the stories that you're making up because that's what's driving your choices, actions, and behaviors. What say
And
you, Mr. Jake?
well, I will first double click on that, which is if you read the book or the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits, He says that our actions follow our identity.
There you go.
And
Ooh, I
so
love that. Hmm.
if you have the identity of a healthy person, you will make choices of a healthy person. If you have the identity of someone who's unhealthy, you will make the choices of an unhealthy person. And the quickest way to change your behavior is to ask, what would a healthy person do in this situation?
Mm,
Because then you can step into that behavior, and our identity is built up of these small micro behaviors over the course of a very long time. It's also built up of the stories that we tell ourselves. And when I was in college, I wrote my senior thesis on memoirs, the memoirs
hmm
of Jewish refugees in Great Britain during the Second World War. And one of the things I realized in reading these memoirs is that they were full of lies.
mm.
And I remember one in particular, this woman, Susie Bradfeld, wrote this book called But Some Become Stars. And she wrote about how her uncle escaped Buchenwald with Elie Wiesel.
Okay.
And I just remember it feeling wrong. I had read Night in high school, and I went back to it and realized Wiesel didn't escape. He was liberated.
Right.
And yet here is this woman and her family telling this story about their uncle for 60 years.
Right.
And in a history paper thesis, I my conclusion was sometimes what we remember is truer than what actually happened.
Hmm.
And those are our stories. If
Yeah.
you can understand your stories, that the myth you have, the thing that's truer than what actually you experienced, you can begin to shift if it's not working for you. But
Yeah.
until you know the myth that you're telling, until you know the stories, you
Yep.
can't make that shift. And importantly, if there are lies in there, trust that you lied for a really good reason. You lied to protect yourself, to take care of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yep.
And it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make the lie bad. Just like in Susie Bradfeld's family, I'm sure that her descendants think it's inspiring that their uncle escaped with Elie Wiesel.
Absolutely.
And no one should take that away from them, even though it didn't happen.
Yep. Exactly. Was a mentor, just one last parting shot, as a mentor said to me many moons ago, if you're going to make up a story, make up a good one that serves you and serves others.
There you go.
So leave you with that as well.
So thank you for tuning in. We will see you
Yes.
next time.
With love, Nick.
Would love, Jake.
Thank you.